From perspective now, Nina Turner joins us. Nina is the former Ohio State Senator, senior fellow at the Institute on Race, Power, and Political Economy at the New School. She was the co-chair of the Sanders campaign in 2020. Thoughts on what you're seeing outside, and also thoughts on what you heard from Netanyahu last hour inside?
Well, just the nerve of him to come in and talk smack, if you will, about Americans exercising their First Amendment rights. That is no way to win people over. We know that there have been many polls taken of the American people. They want a permanent ceasefire. Countless labor unions, Connell, in this country that represent millions of workers across our country have said permanent ceasefire. Let's find a way to permanent peace. So to ascribe to the pro-peace, anti-war protesters some malice towards Israel is absolutely wrong. And how dare he come into our country to talk about Americans in that way? That just doesn't sit well with me at all. And I went to some of the college protests, right here, even in Cleveland. And those college students were about peace. A lot of those college students were Jewish college students themselves, the Jewish Voices for Peace, and so many others coming together just to say permanent ceasefire, to recognize the humanity of the Palestinian people. So I'm really disappointed. I'm not shocked, but I'm really disappointed.
What would you say about the timing of all this? Because it happens, there's a big shift in our own politics going on literally this week. We're watching the live pictures out of Washington. It looks like there's someone going up with a Palestinian flag now. I think Evan said earlier they were trying to bring down, I believe it was an American flag, and replace it with a Palestinian flag. And that's what it looks like that guy in the red shirt is doing right there. Again, just outside the train station, Union Station in Washington, D.C. What would you say, Nina, about the timing of all this week as the presidential election shifts? I mean, a lot's been made, for example, about Vice President Harris not being there today. She didn't change her schedule to be there today, and whether she has a different approach on this issue, maybe, than President Biden as she goes up against Trump in the campaign. What would you say about that?
I hope she does have a different approach. I've talked to people who've had conversations with the vice president one-on-one before this big major shift, and they tell me that she has expressed concerns about how our country, how the government is handling this. Now, as vice president, she got a role with the president, but now as the presumptive nominee to run for president this year as the Democratic nominee, she does have an opportunity to take a different course. And as far as the uncommitted vote, the uncommitted
right, we've talked a lot about that. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, she has an opportunity. There's a door that could be open. The uncommitted movement is operating in good faith. They want to hear from the vice president about where she stands on this. And really what they're asking for is to stop sending bombs to Israel. We know that there have been countless members of Congress, or some members of Congress, I would say, who boycotted today. And some of those members also voted to send bombs over to Israel. So you can't just not show up and then also still vote to send bombs. 40,000 people have been killed.
There's a bunch of Americans, though, Palestinians, right. There's a bunch of Americans, however, Nina, I think that'll watch this picture now, the one we have on. The guy raising a Palestinian flag on U.S. soil, right near the United States Capitol. That would rub people the wrong way to watch what's going on in the United States. What would you say to those people?
Some people go too far, but that does not negate the fact that the United States of America has an opportunity here to stand up and push for peace, because we have the big stick. It is our bombs, Connell, it's our bombs killing babies and mothers and daddies over there in the Gaza, our bombs. So there more than one thing can be true at the same time. I don't accept that somebody's moving the American flag. You don't have to do that. But that is not a representation of the thousands of people who have gathered all across this country, hundreds of thousands of people who have gathered at any given time to say to the United States of America, let's count Palestinian lives, let's work towards peace. That's really what people are asking for. And any outliers, I don't support the outliers, but asking for peace is not a bad thing.
No, I hear you. And that, you point out some people. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.